It's interesting, I read a book years ago, not a Christian book. It was by Ben Stuart. He was a producer at ABC's Good Morning America and then moved to NBC Nightly News. Graduate of Harvard, Rhodes Scholar at Oxford, wrote a book about survival. And the whole book was about who survives and who doesn't. Fascinating book, some of it fairly intuitive. Like young, healthy men survive plane crashes more than old, unhealthy women. It's not surprising. Some of it was surprising, like left-handed people die earlier than their right-handed counterparts. Very interesting. Or people with negative initials die earlier than people with not negative ones. I am left-handed and my initials are BS. So according to this guy, I'm in real trouble. It's a disturbing book for me. But there was a chapter on faith. And he said in that chapter, he says, when I started this book, I was skeptical of the role of faith in survival. And he says, I didn't want to write about faith. Not a religious person, I don't want to write about it. And he said, but as I looked at all these scenarios, he said 75 or 80% cited a higher power as the reason for their survival. He went to the Naval Survival Training Institute and talked to the guy who literally wrote the book, How to Survive on Land and Sea. He talked to the guy who wrote the book on how to survive. And he asked him his boilerplate question, what's the key to survival? And he says, without hesitation, he said, faith in God. He said, it's a key factor in all survival scenarios. It's a force multiplier. Believing God will intervene. Believing God will move. And then he begins to recount stories he just couldn't explain. Talked about Gary McCain, who was working on his air conditioning in Woodmont, Kentucky. Someone came running up and said, 2 workers are trapped in a nearby underground cistern. So he volunteered to shimmy down this hole and get these guys out. And when he started down, there was an explosion underground, and it lit him on fire. Gary was able to climb out and extinguish the flames, but all he had on was his leather belt and 1 boot. And Sherwood writes that he had experienced full thickness. That's what you call 3rd-degree burns on 85% of your body. So they put him in a medically induced coma for 2.5 months. And when he came out of the coma, he told a story about a dream he had when he was under. And the dream was he was walking down a sterile hallway, turned past the nurse's station, went to some double doors, tried to open them, and couldn't do it. So he went back to his room. And when he told them that story, they all freaked out. Because they were like, your grandpa brought the elders to pray over you. And the night they prayed, you coded. You had a cardiac arrest. So they were out of the room. He says, but your papa and the elders went to the exit door and prayed over it that you would not leave till you were healed. And they said, this guy came into the hospital in a coma. He had no idea the layout of the building, but he vividly could describe the hallway he walked down, the store he turned, and trying to exit this door, and he couldn't. So he went back. And his recovery happened so fast that he was released a year before the doctors had predicted. How do you make sense of that? I don't. But I'll tell you, I come to God without presumption, but I come with expectation. So look, drink your kale smoothie, right? Take your turmeric shots. Consume elderberries however you consume them. And then pray. Because we should come with expectation. The prayer of the righteous person has great power when it's working.